Well, that distribution is from the bottom, from all the worker bees to the queen bee at the top, right? It's not the other way around, people. Wealth doesn't trickle down, it trickles up through the fractional reserve system. Monday, June 24th, 2024, Moneko 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today we're going to look at a topic that I bet you has probably never been talked about in any campaign, election campaign. And it's probably the most important topic for every nation on the planet because, yeah, it's a parasitical situation. And what is that topic? Well, it's fractional reserve lending, fractional reserve banking. And it might sound complicated, but it's not. It's very simple. And we'll also be looking at how gold and silver, for that matter as well, allow you to become your own central bank to avoid this fractional reserve lending practice. And stop, so you can stop feeding the beast. The beast, of course, is the central banking fiat currency system that uses fractional reserve lending to extract wealth from nations. Yeah, that's what it is, for a very small group of men and women who control this system. And they use very technical and complicated terms to keep people in the dark. And that's why I make my videos, is one of the reasons to expose this system, which is totally unfair, which is parasitical. And you wouldn't be surprised to know that one of the books that exposes the system is this one here, The Nameless War, by Captain Ramsey, who was an MP during World War II here in the UK. And he was put in prison by Winston Churchill because he didn't play ball. He wanted to expose the system. And in this book, on page 18, he explains it very simply. And I'm going to go through that right now. Gold was soon to become the basis of loans. So this was in the aftermath of the creation of the Bank of England in 1694. 10 times the size of the amount deposited. So yeah, they're going to go use gold as the basis of loans. And those loans would be 10 times the amount of gold deposited. And now, of course, there's no gold deposited at all. It's just out of thin air completely. But back then, it became out of thin air as well, but not as bad as today. We've gone one step further. And if you don't believe me about fractional reserve lending, that it's present, Google William Patterson. He was one of the founders of the Bank of England, and he said that the bank hath the benefit of earning interest on money it creates out of thin air. So they tell you in plain sight. So what does this mean, this fractional reserve system? Well, we're going to go through it right now. In other words, £100 in gold would be legal security for £1,000. So they leverage it of loan. So they're lending money here that they don't have at 3%. Therefore, £100 in gold could earn £30 interest annually with no more trouble to the lender than the keeping of a few ledger entries. And that again is the reason why we're going to look at why we need to become our own central banks, because every pound, dollar, or euro you leave in a bank, that will be multiplied by 10, sometimes even more. I think the Federal Reserve in the U.S., they removed all reserve requirements back in 2020, so it's zero. So they could leverage it 100, 1,000 times, while you earn nothing from your money or your deposit in the bank. They're earning maybe it doesn't sound usurious, like 3 or 5%, but when you multiply it, they're worse than loan sharks. Loan sharks at least have to have the money to lend you. Central bankers and bankers don't. And here's the part where you realize over the decades and centuries how nations are basically impoverished and ripped off, and why we are in the situation that we are right now. And they use, of course, these central bankers, these bankers who control the currency and the money. They use politics to divide us, so we don't look at these kinds of things. So here we go. So the owner of 100 pounds of land, however, still must work every hour of daylight in order to make perhaps 4%. The end of the process must only be a matter of time. The moneylenders must become millionaires. Well, they're becoming almost trillionaires now. They're close to it. Those who own and work the land, the Englishmen and the Scotsmen, must be ruined. So there you go. It's not just land, of course, but any kind of business that you run. When you put your capital down and you earn 4 or 5%, that's all you earn. The bankers, when you deposit 100 pounds or $100 with them, they earn 40, 50, 100%. And that's why you've got so much inequality. And that's why our children and grandchildren are going to be in really bad situation, because they keep inflating the system with more and more debt. And these politicians out there, they never talk about it. So unless someone comes out and says, we're going to abolish the Bank of England, we're going to abolish the Federal Reserve, we're going to make fractional reserve lending illegal, I don't have much hope for things. Yes, I just saw a tweet by the President of the United States saying that November 5th, the election will be an election to save freedom and democracy. Well, that's rubbish, of course. No, it's an election that will keep the bankers and the moneylenders in charge, no matter who wins. The only politician, I think, that probably would have raised these concerns about fractional reserve lending, of course, was Ron Paul. Unfortunately, his movement has been hijacked, and I haven't heard anyone talking about fractional reserve lending, any politician, any political party. So before we quickly look at where the markets are, just wanted to reference A Pocketbook of Gold, a survival manual for monetary mayhem by Jim Sinclair and Peter Carlin. So here's the book. It's a difficult one to find. I bought it many years ago from Jim Sinclair's blog, JS Mindset, of course. Jim Sinclair passed away last year, so that blog is no more. But you can also add silver to this. Jim Sinclair only talked about gold here, but on page 9 it says gold allows you to become your own central bank. And I wanted to tell people as well, when I talk about gold and silver, I'm not saying that you have to have all your wealth or savings in gold and silver. Of course not. I'm not here to tell you how to run your affairs, but what I think is important is to have some as insurance, and definitely not keep more than you have to in these parasitical financial institutions, aka banks. So gold allows you to be your own central bank. Yeah, and add silver to that too. Although a central bank is supposed to maintain the value and purchasing power of a currency, it has both the ability and the tendency to depreciate the wealth of citizens through excess money printing. Interestingly, while they issue paper money, they also maintain gold as a currency reserve. That alone should tell you something. Central banks do not depend entirely on their own paper currency to maintain wealth. They use gold. And I know central banks and the banking system are our enemies. And by us, I mean the general public. But sometimes you need to know how your enemy operates to fight them and emulate them in some respects. That's the way I see it. One reason is because gold offsets currency risk. Through the retention of gold, an individual mimics the function of a central bank and therefore negates the detrimental effects of a central bank running its monetary printing press. It is why they own it, and they don't want you to. The control of a nation's money supply can dictate the distribution of wealth and power within the nation, while that distribution is from the bottom, from all the worker bees to the queen bee at the top, right? It's not the other way around, people. Wealth doesn't trickle down, it trickles up through the fractional reserve system. As the banker Mayer Rothschild once said, "Give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes its laws." Gold mitigates the power surrendered by holding a fiat currency. Gold is power. I would say silver as well. And gold is more of a long-term store of wealth. Silver as well, in my opinion, but it's also more for day-to-day barter, I would say. Gold is a hedge against the self-serving nature of governments. Again, ponder the power equation. Gold ownership passes the central bank function directly to yourself. In the spirit of self-reliance, it is better to be your own central bank instead of delegating the responsibility to a third party like the Federal Reserve or the Bank of England. Both institutions have a poor record in maintaining currency values. Well, it's not a poor record, I would say. They maintain a very good record for their shareholders and for the money lenders. It's for the public that it doesn't. So I think they're doing a great job, but not for us. I guess I'm a bit more cynical than Mr. Sinclair was. Gold takes the Federal Reserve out of your life, or at the very least marginalizes it. Why marginalizes it? Well, because unfortunately we still need to keep some reserves, some kind of savings or deposits in a financial institution only to function day to day. Yeah, that's why. Since the central bank is the primary controller of a currency's value and therefore your wealth, this is no bad thing. So what's no bad thing? Well, it's having a little bit of gold or silver outside the system. And of course, it depends on how much you've been able to, how much wealth you've been able to produce and create over your lifetime. Depends on how old you are, how long you've been around. And I've been at this for almost 10 years, warning people about this system, and people have asked me in the past, how can I buy gold and silver? Well, the first thing I tell people is do your homework. If you've never bought gold and silver, start. yeah, just buy one coin or several coins or whatever, or bars, and do it from a reputable source or dealer. And if you want to help my channel though, so I can keep exposing this system, I do have precious metals dealer affiliates, and you can find them below in the description of all my videos. So there you go. So let's quickly look at where the markets are this morning. They look fairly quiet, even though we've had some kind of event in Crimea. And I'm not going to go too much into that, but suffice it to say, our Western leaders are continuing to provoke or poke the Russian bear. And that's another thing about being your own central bank and holding your own gold and silver outside a bank, is that you're not financing your government. And yes, maybe sometimes the government does things that are helpful to citizens, but I haven't seen it for decades. And let alone you stop financing these activities overseas, not just the American government, but also the UK government, the EU government. The less you keep with the banks, because the banks are agents of the governments and the central banks. They're all in it together. I would say that that hampers them by extracting, if possible, most of your wealth from the banking system. But anyway, it's just gone past 8 a.m. here in London. Beautiful weather. We finally got summer. It's warm and sunny. So yeah, spot gold is at 2,322. It's basically up a buck, so it's virtually unchanged. The high's been 23.27, the low 23.17.50. So very quiet, as I said, narrow range. Silver, yeah, that's also pretty much unchanged. It's up about a cent at 29.55. The low's been 33 and the high's been 70. The Dow futures is up 12. The NASDAQ 100 is up 32. And the S&P future is up about 8 points. So very quiet, as I said earlier. The only thing that looks pretty interesting here is the dollar versus the yen. And the high today for the dollar was 159.94. And I spoke about, or Rafi, Clive and I spoke yesterday on the live stream about the dollar yen. So if you want to find out more why it's important, watch the live stream from yesterday. But suffice it to say, this 160 level is like a 34-year high for the dollar, or 34-year low for the yen. And I think it could be quite important and disruptive for the financial system. And I spoke earlier, of course, about getting a lot of your savings wealth out of the system, not feeding the beast. Does that include mining stocks or commodity stocks, which I think are going to do well? It's up to you. I have some of my savings in that sector, but it's up to you to decide how much you want to risk in the system. That's what I'll say about that. What about crude oil? Well, crude oil is down slightly. WTI is trading at 80.50, and Brent is trading at 84.35. High-grade copper, that's down about 0.5% at 441. I think we need to see that go back above 4.5. So that's where things are. And yes, with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day and a very good start to the week. Take care. Bye.